Oh my God, I just fell in love with it.
Thanks so much, Jay.
Blew my mind. And it worked. I wanted to buy my thing.
Jay is, I would say, the Yoda of sales calls, man.
Just talking to Jay, he was so good at just taking what it is, seeing the opportunity and the value and the real reason we are making it.
Talk to Jay because he got it. He can definitely help you out.
Talk to Jay. You're going to get a lot. You're going to gain a lot.
I would absolutely recommend him for any position that you have.
Jay's definitely the guy.
Give him the chance, give him the opportunity. You won't regret it.
He's good at what he does, so I highly recommend him, and I would book him before he is fully booked out.
What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Ninja Show podcast. And if you're looking to scale your sales, increase profit margins, and build a high performance team, today's guest is going to give you the exact blueprint for doing just that. He's a chief sales officer who has helped 3 different companies add 7 figures in monthly revenue, not by just selling more, but by optimizing processes, leveraging sales tech, and transforming sales team culture. Beyond his impressive business success, he's also a husband, father of 2, and active in his church. My kind of guy, proving that you can scale your business without sacrificing what matters most. If you're ready to learn how to build a scalable sales system that works smarter, not harder, then buckle up for this power-packed episode. Everyone, let's give a warm welcome to Ben Gower. Hey Ben, how you doing?
Good, man. This is exciting.
Awesome. I have no idea if I butcher your last name, but correct me if I'm wrong.
That was, you nailed it, Gower. Yeah.
Oh, come on. Okay, that 50-50 chance. I should have asked you before. Now, I just learned from you before we got onto this podcast that you are a father of 2. You have an 18-year-old girl and an 8-month-old. 18-year-old girl and an 8-month-old boy. Correct?
That is right. Quite the spread.
Okay. What happened there? Because I mean, I'm a father of 3, so tell me about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the short version is, I mean, it was my transformation actually into faith is
really
figuring out that, oh, I got a girl pregnant at 18 years old. So most of my 18th year of life was freaking out, and it was just like everything that could fall apart fell apart within a matter of, I want to say, 2 months.
Wow.
Where my dad passed.
Oh my gosh.
My daughter was born 2.5 weeks later, and then it was maybe 4 to 6 weeks after that the mother literally left me for another guy. And it was just like, I'm so grateful, by the way, it all happened the way it did now. But in the time, it was just like everything crumbled, and growing up, it was like my dad was the breadwinner. My mom didn't work growing up. She was a stay-at-home mom. So like 100% of the financial stability in my life was gone. It completely derailed going to college plans to like, okay, how do I figure out how to provide for this kid? And, ultimately is what had me land on the path of sales. It took me 1.5 years to figure it out, but that's ultimately what planted the seed for all of this in the first place. So.
Oh my gosh, what an intro. You're 18 years old. You got a girl pregnant, passed away 2 weeks later. Your mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so there's no financial security and stability. And you say within 1 year you figured out that instead of college plans that you would need to learn sales. That's pretty fast. I mean, you learn fast. Tell us more about, how did you make that pivot? How did you make that realization? Because most people would be wallowing in grief and trying to figure out how the heck not to screw up more life.
Oh, I had those seasons, like on the street. Don't worry. There was definitely that, but it was also like this from a very logical standpoint, because like, and even taking a step back in high school, like I was very afraid of what people thought of me. I had horrible acne, so like I felt like people were looking at me and judging me all the time. Now I know the truth is everybody's too self-consumed about their own stuff that they don't really care. But that's what how I experienced life at that time. And so when I was going down this path of like figuring out like, okay, what am I going to do? Like I looked at it as like, okay, I have two paths. Path number one is do what my parents did and what most of the world does, which is go down this college path. Okay, I go ahead and get this degree. I get out of school and I might be lucky if I can make 40K a year out of like right out of college at that time. Maybe the number is bigger now because this is 18 years ago.
Yeah.
But that was like, okay, that doesn't seem attractive. And I know what my bills are right now. I'm not living that good. And just to get like to a basic level of stability, I need to be bringing in X amount of dollars. And so it literally sent me down this path of just like studying on Google, like, what can I do? And sales was the thing that it was just like, okay, even if it takes me 4 years, like it would in college, to get to a level of competency where I can make a lot of money, at least I'll get to that path without a bunch of debt. So that was like literally my thought process is I'll be doing and learning at the same time and hopefully outpace what I would do to actually get out of school with a bunch of debt and make 40K a year.
That's genius.
Yeah. Thank you.
So tell me, so you did some research on Google, and for someone who's 18 who got a girl pregnant, who had a daughter, and I don't know who's watching the girl, but that is just a slap in the face of life, just saying, good luck with that. And then you losing your dad and having your mom who is not financially able to provide, and Googling on, making a search and realizing that the traditional path, which is, the matrix path that most people take, they take that pill and they swallow it. And that's supposed to be like culturally, even from a parent to child, that's what they would want their child to do. Like, you're living against all odds. So how did you, I know obviously you made that realization because you're smarter than most, but how did you go into sales? Like, you just researched and it says that sales jobs make the most money. And what did you do when you found something?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was kind of just like logically going down this path of figuring out that like that's the only thing that makes sense of like creating, whether it's sales or entrepreneurship, figuring out how to bring value into the world that is outside of the transactional. I give you an hour of my life, you give me X amount of dollars for it. And so I was already like educating myself. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was, reading books and trying to figure out life. And ultimately what happened was it was like a scene straight out of Wolf of Wall Street, literally, where there was some on-campus recruiters at the college that I was going to, because like I was 6 months into college, and I was talking to somebody who I was out there, and they just approached us and were just like, so out of curiosity, like, what do people do around here for for money during the summers? And I was just like, all right, what are you selling? And, it was just like this tension filled interaction. But ultimately, like, the guys that I was talking to, one was 21 years old, one was 19 years old. And the 19-year-old kid was just like, yeah, I knocked doors. I did door-to-door sales last summer in between like the end of my first year of college and it was the beginning of college for him. So like he had finished high school, did door-to-door that summer, and then went into college, and he had made $67,000 in that summer. And I was like, bro, if you show me actual proof that you made $67,000 in a summer, I will drop out of school tomorrow and work for you. Because that's exactly what I was
for
looking
the 19-year-old
like,
guy.
Yeah. So it was like, a couple of Mormon guys that, were amazing. I'm still friends with one of them to this day, that they were just doing that. And so I dropped out. I literally the next day, because they showed me proof that night, and I was like, well, I'm either a man of my word or I'm not. And so, so I did that, and was crazy. Cause like I did door knocking for 30 days straight, just grinding my face off before I got my first sale. And this is an average industry where a brand new guy off the street will get their first sale typically in 48 hours of knocking.
Whoa.
And I was supposed to like fly out to Philadelphia to work on that team there. And I didn't know this, but on the day that I got the sale, the manager was going to, take me aside and be like, dude, this isn't for you. You shouldn't come to
fire you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they have their housing costs if I'm not able to actually produce when I get out there.
Yeah.
So anyways, I made that sale. He was pumped about it. And then it was like the very first week in Philadelphia when I got there, ended up making $3,000 that week. And it was just like, holy smokes, this is amazing. Like it just clicked. And so that was my introduction into getting into sales in the first place. Yeah.
So you did door to door. What were you selling?
Home security. Yeah.
And how long did you do that for?
For 4 years. Did solar. So Solar City, before they became Tesla Solar, was doing like a huge recruiting push and trying to get door knocking going. I was a part of that wave 4 years later. Ended up staying with them for a couple years and was an assistant manager of an office in North Phoenix. And then ended up leaving that to do DirecTV and run teams there. And DirecTV was a much simpler sale. So I was actually able to scale out a team pretty big. It was like within 9 months, we had 50 door knockers in 3 different states, full-time knocking. And, it was, I liked it, but that was actually what got me into the coaching space. Is one of the guys that I had trained in the solar company, got into the coaching world, started crushing it, wanted to start doing business coaching. And I was actively looking for a way out of door knocking at that time because the team that I had in Las Vegas had figured out how to manipulate DirecTV's system well enough to basically get illegal aliens approved for like tier 1, like they're approved, they're in, and then nobody was paying their bill. So I was like dealing with $10,000-$15,000 a week in chargebacks going crazy negative. And it brought me
a
out
week. Holy smokes. That's insane.
Yeah.
So you went from door to door home security, you went to solar, you went to DirecTV, then what?
Then coaching. So I came into my buddy's company to help him like as a salesperson. But in the beginning, I was just working the DMs as a DM setter to him. Ended up going from there to like taking the calls, and then going from there to like managing the back end operations as well as the sales team, because like in door to door, there's no marketing to figure out. It's you knock on a door and you sell a product. The only marketing is really just the t-shirts and the badge you're wearing. Right. So, and the slicks that you have. So, so I was very good with sales and fulfillment, but I had no idea what to do with marketing. So he was able to just focus on what he was gifted in, which was getting on podcasts, running ads, doing the marketing. And I was able to maximize how we captured the revenue on the back end with the transactions and help them grow the team on the back. So we grew that from like start to $300K a month within 6 months. And, I stayed with that company another 2 or 3 months after that. Don't remember the exact timelines, but when I left, it was because I didn't exactly feel aligned to some of the company decisions he was making. And I was just planning on going back to door knocking. And what happened was a lot of the clients inside of that program, because I was leading a weekly call on Wednesdays, that what's so crazy about your brand is everybody started calling me the sales ninja. And so they would reach out to me for one-on-one coaching after I resigned from the company. And I was just like, everybody's calling me the sales ninja. So literally the first program that I actually had on my own was literally called the sales ninja. So
that's awesome, man.
A lot of wild alignments you and I have. Where you're like my spiritual doppelganger, basically.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what is because door sales is not for the weak. I mean, or maybe it is, but it makes you strong. What is some of the greatest lessons that you've learned from hundreds of rejections of, you just know that when you walk up to the door and, whether you see a person closing the curtain or someone closing the door or dogs barking, what were some of the telltale signs that you knew that you had a chance? And what were some of the things that you did to overcome them in door-to-door sales?
Yeah, you learn really quickly that whether or not somebody accepts, like even having a conversation with you or completely rejects you, has very little to do with you and everything to do with maybe what they're going through in that moment or past negative experiences of other people that have knocked on their doors. So you learn not to take really anything in life personally pretty quickly. Otherwise, you don't really last, because, you know, you're going to get at least once or twice a day people like, you know, looking at you as the good opportunity to dump their rough day on. And you just got to go on to the next door with the same positive energy that you had on that door, right? But if you allow that to take away from your focus, then you're done for the day. You're not going to make any money. So it's like, I think the biggest thing about door to door that you learn or you sink is emotional resiliency, because if you don't have that, you're cooked, you know.
And I think the reason why you know, the door to door knockers have gotten a bad name, and I used to kind of have the openness of saying, like, let me give them an opportunity to pitch, and to hear because it's hard. I know it's hard, but then there was 2 incidences where, well, not from my home, but neighbor broke in and from what they thought was a door-to-door salesperson. Was, I think, a water heater technician was doing a check, and, you know, they knocked on the door. I opened the door and they stepped in. I didn't even invite them in. We are here on a maintenance check to make sure that your water levels, blah, 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 whatever BS they said. I found out that they were scammers. And I said, I didn't invite you into my home. And they already shoved their boot and their body in. And that invasion of privacy was just like, you know, really violated. And so I said, you know, I didn't invite you in, so please step back out and don't come back. Right. Yeah. And I found out later that there was like a neighborhood app that said there's people that are trying to enter to scam you on these, I don't know, water charge you for a lifetime contract or something like that. And so I just like used car salesmen, where that use sleazy, icky, pushy, they have a stereotype for a reason. And truth be told, my job after finishing college was that, because I love cars, I wanted to be a used car salesman, and I didn't even get the job.
Wow, that's hilarious. Yeah,
so
that's unfortunate that you experienced that, but I saw that happen like more and more, where it's just like it was a good transition to get out of knocking doors and into the online stuff. But I'm also very grateful for the education of it. You know,
you put in a lot of years. I mean, I don't know how many years that adds up to, but I'm looking at, like, you know, is it 5 to 10 years? That's you really put in the time.
Yep.
Whew. Do you enjoy closing more, or do you enjoy managing high ticket sales closers?
I enjoy managing because it's more of a challenge, and if I'm not challenged, I get really bored. I think is my issue. Because like even when I had my own coaching program and then decided to shut that down to just focus on like actually coming internally into a sales team, and you know, I mean, I was on a team where the company was doing roughly 300 grand a week in sales at that time. Yeah. Month 1, I was the top closer out of, I think there was 6 closers. And it was just like, quickly they moved me from closer into sales leadership and like helping on the leadership side. Wow. And I'm really grateful for them doing that, because the honesty here is, I want to say it was like that last week of that month, I was just like starting to wonder, like, what am I doing? This isn't the greatest use of my time and energy. I don't feel like I'm growing. I'm just like having these conversations, and I was making great money. I think I made like 30K my first month doing that. But I was I just knew that I needed to be challenged in a different way. And so luckily they brought me into that. And that was like the start of that journey, is like being able to see how the things that I had done with leading teams in the door-to-door world translated with the use of technology and everything else on a team that's already doing $1 million a month in transactions. How do we do that? And we ended up helping that company scale to where we peaked out at 1.27 million cash collected in a single week. So we were just like shy of 5 million for that month. But like that was what I experienced. And I knew, like, okay, this is what the blueprint looks like to at least hit those numbers. Ended up basically helping other companies do that from there.
So to be able to go from 6-figure months to 7-figure months, like part of a team that went from $100K to $1 million months, which is like when you 10x, that's a very challenging thing to do, especially when you have a larger growing team, you have organic and paid ads, you have show up rate issues. It was 30%, help get it to 90, 94%. Tell us about this. How do you build a scalable system that goes, from this working harder to working smarter and going from months to million plus months? Give us the blueprint. Give us the, inside your brain.
Okay. So there's three things that I would speak to on that. Number one is simplicity scales.
Yes.
I see a lot of company that have a bunch of different offers, and that's good to have something that you can send people into after the front end offer. However, like the companies that I've scaled, at least the first two, one was a 10K offer, one was a 15K offer, and we got them both to a couple million a month cash collected and had zero upsells into back-end sales while keeping above a 4.5x ROAS. So like we just like really mastered that front end. Like how do we go from lead to transaction as fast as possible? And we got it down to an average of 11 days. But 70% of our cash collection efforts came from if we were able to make contact, whether outbound or inbound setter, within 48 hours of a person becoming a lead in the first place, that was responsible for 70% of our cash collection. So speed to lead was super important. But and then I see what other people have done in the industry. It's just like, man, I wish I would have learned how they did that. Cause like, another guy, for example, Mitchell Miles that I'm buddies with, he used to manage Cole Gordon's team. He was the president of their company. And he didn't really focus on the front end as much. He focused on how do we get people who buy the front end to have such an amazing experience that they end up upselling. And so while he was managing that team, and I don't know what the numbers are now, but it was an average of 45 to 60% of leads when they would get to the end of their 4-month 12K program would upsell into a 24K or the 68K mastermind from there. And that's where they made all of their money. They didn't necessarily need to make money in that front end offer. So it's just like, there's different ways that you can think about, like, how am I going to optimize to not only scale the revenue, but scale the profitability of what we're doing here. And I've just focused 100% on like, how do we get a fast transaction? Because that's all I did for 8 years as a door-to-door guy. It's just like build the trust, get the transaction going, boom, boom, boom. And so another, which leads perfectly into like thing number 2 is in 2025, there's definitely a recession of trust where people are way harder to sell to. So the faster you can build that trust and show them more of what they're going to get if they decide to move forward as early as possible in their funnel, that's what's winning right now. And so what I've done on a couple of those offers is literally we would have like, whether there was a setter call involved or not, like 2 of those offers, we literally had every person talk to a setter before talking to a closer. And I'm not saying that's the smartest way to go about it. We would have saved a setter commission if we went straight to closers on if there was an application that suggested there were financial qualifications and buyer intent, but that's what we did. And what we would do is in between the setter and closer call, we would have them watch a pre-call video is what we called it. It was between 20 minutes and 30 minutes long. And in that pre-call video, it was kind of like a hook story on what got the founder to create this offer in the first place. And then literally 10, 15 minutes of that video would be explaining, here's what you get if you decide to move forward. And then at the end, frequently asked questions. And so we would have a certain percentage, maybe 10, 15% of closes that would be prospects that would show up to the call and be like, yeah, I don't have any questions. That video answered everything. Like, how much is it? Well, it's hey, like, here's how we can take care of that. Okay, I'm in. Where do I sign? So like, once you get that dialed in, what's so powerful about this too is now you don't have closers that are, a typical sales process is like, I'm going to get somebody emotionally like connected and in, and somebody's like, all right, I want to work with you guys. How does it work? And then the problem is if you go into like explaining the deliverables at that point, you just are evaporating the emotion and going into logic, right?
Yeah.
So if I can take care of the logical details of what you get if you decide to move forward before you even get to the close call, then the closer can just do nothing but build the emotional gap and ask for the sale. So those were some of the things mechanically from a sales process perspective that like were huge for maximizing the cash collected per close call book that we even had. But doing it that way, we watched the show rate drop from like 65-70% down to 40%. But then we would have a live call to cash collected close rate of like 65-70% across all of our closers.
So your show up rate would decrease, but your cash collected would increase?
Dramatically increased to where we had literally a quarter to a third of every close call we even booked turning into a cash collected close.
And how much were the cash collected percentages on those?
An average of 45%.
Wow. You know what the close rate was on those 40% show up rates?
Yeah, 65-70% of live call across the whole team.
65 to 75% close rate?
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
I know that. So that's where it's just like, if you zoom out far enough, what is the number that matters? Well, if I have a booked call, what is the average cash collected per booked call that we're doing? And do we even care about a show rate on people that are tire kickers, or can we just push those people away in a way that also makes it way more attractive for the people that are serious about making a transformation? And then you're not having your closers get burnt out on the tire kickers, and they're able to show up sharp on the people that are actually like ready to roll. So it's very different than anything I've seen anybody else do, but it worked really, really well to help a couple offers or 3 offers add $1 million a month into their bottom line. And then from there, it's just like managing like a big team, and how do you keep the culture high of like, staying driven and going after the leads. So. Yeah.
Wow. That was incredible. That was a masterclass in itself. I'm just kind of go back a little bit. You talked about, speed to lead. You talked about, 50% of, I think you guys were upselling on a 12K deal. And you said there was
that was with what Mitchell Miles had done with
right.
Yeah.
And what were the upsell prices on the 12K?
On that was a 24K continuity for like a 12-month contract at 2K a month, or 68,000 to ascend into a higher level mastermind.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that back end is important too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I definitely didn't focus on at all, but for sure, like adding in where I really am dialed in on optimizing the front end sales, adding that in on the back end, I imagine, a lot of offers could be at an 8 to 10x ROAS, even at these big numbers,
Wow. That's unheard of, 8 to 10x ROAS. I mean, you said, I think on one of the offers, you said it was 4.5x ROAS.
Yeah, I think, and without a back end offer, with one offer that I managed, we got it up to 7x ROAS a couple months, and we're talking at $2 million a month cash collected. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So that's incredible. I mean, I would imagine that there'd be many people who are growing and scaling that would want to work with you, and if you haven't to implement this, proven, trademarked ninja secret system to the speed to lead, to follow-ups, to nurturing from the hook story to the origin founder story, trust building, fast decision making, everything's fast, and to close the gap.
Yeah.
So what do you do now? Like, so you're a chief, what did you call it? Sales officer. What does that mean?
Well, that's what I put in the thing there for you, because I didn't really know how else to describe myself.
Yeah.
But there is another offer that I've recently taken on to help them scale up in the same way, where I'm taking personal responsibility for their results. But the way that other people could work with me right now, I don't have like a group coaching program or anything else. I'm trying to figure out like what is the I guess industry need that I can uniquely fill in a way that nobody else is really doing it that way. So I'm figuring out how to build that out. But what I do have space for, I guess, at the moment is like, if I had a company that is at a minimum of 200 grand a month, there's not just the owner, but there's also a sales manager in place. Those are the companies that I can come in and consult, basically coach that sales director on what to do after doing like an initial deep dive on the company, figuring out what's broken, what's working, so that I can, ultimately see what are the leverage points that I can pull on to get an increase in revenue the fastest, and then just guide the sales director on what to do. Like that is the scenario yeah, I can create some massive win-wins with. And like, I even talked to a girl a couple of weeks ago that was just like, okay, I want to hire you. I want to pay you. I guess I need to hire a sales manager first. I'll get back to you when I do that. So, and she ended up, getting started with me earlier today. So,
congratulations.
Once you have that in place, you're good to go. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the exact dilemma that I'm facing. Is I have a couple of clients and people who want to hire me that are at the 200, 250K a month. One in particular has a sales team, but no sales director. So when I help grow and scale them, I meet with the founders, I meet with the sales team. But at the end of the day, one of the founders has to kind of like check in on a daily basis, like a sales director. They're kind of hoping that I would do it, but I'm like, it's not worth my time and energy unless you had someone in place. So I 100% agree with you, because I can help, lead and direct a sales director to help increase the profit margins and increase the revenue in the fastest way possible. But I think the expectation that he has that I would take on that role so he wouldn't have to do it. And so we're kind of at a crossroads of like, man, I'm doing this he's like, I'm doing this every single day. I don't have the time to do this. And I'm like, well, it's not enough for me in terms of the hours that I would have to put in for the amount that I'm getting, because I can grow and scale my own business and my coaching program, 10, 50 fold than, managing your team. So how do you solve that problem? Like, so do they just need to hire a sales director because now they got to put in more skin in the game, because they're very concerned about, cash flow and staying lean?
Yeah. That's between like, and I don't know what your consulting fees are. I would imagine they're similar to mine, because it sounds like we have a complementary skill set. But like, what a company would be wise to do, and in this industry, it's interesting because most founders, like, they get to a certain level around 200,000 a month by mastering marketing and dialing the messaging. And what got you there is not going to get you to $1 million a month. Now, the biggest problem you got to solve is sales team culture and sales leadership. And you have to be comfortable paying the type of price tag you need to pay in order to get that dialed in and that problem solved. Because like, if you zoom out and you're looking at the economics of a business and you're looking at the P&Ls of what's happening, really, as long as you can keep the acquisition cost, meaning ad spend, ad management, sales commission, spiffs, overrides, everything, and the fulfillment piece of what you're actually paying people to do, under 55%, that's like on the really high end, then the rest of it actually works out and you have a profitable business, because then you can account for another 10, 15% in overhead, and you can be at a 30, 35% margin at $1 million a month. But incentivizing the right person to do that, like a really effective sales executive, it's like they're building a business inside of your business.
Yeah.
Instead of a course that you've built, now they're building onboarding systems for different roles in the company. Instead of marketing, they're doing recruiting efforts. Instead of sales calls, they're doing hiring calls and interviews to make sure that they're bringing in people that they can actually commit time and energy into developing to get to a certain level of KPI. So like, everything is identical. It's a business within a business. and you have to have that person incentivized well, where like what I'll guide people on how to think about this, if I'm just looking at it as like a consultant, is you have to have like the sales executive incentivized to where they're going to make in between 30 to 40,000, maybe more per month by themselves as take home at $1 million a month, which ends up being 3 or 4% of revenue as a override. But if they're able to manage everything in such a way that is maximizing that revenue per lead and keeping the economic big picture in place, then that's where you win. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I think part of it is like some companies that are scaling get scared because they have a growing team, and to be able to put skin in the game, they're not used to it because, like you said, what worked before is not going to help them get to where they want to go, and sometimes they're not either aware or they're scared of the cost that it's going to take to help take them to another level, right?
Right. I mean, and the cost is interesting too, because with the exception of overrides, which is just like a percentage of like the actual top line, if salespeople don't perform, you're not going to pay them, right? So that's where the incentives are aligned to like push revenue, and I'll pay you bigger paychecks, right? And so for myself and my experience with door knocking and how I think about things, like I would rather depend on more of like internal sales team talent to keep pushing revenue versus dumping money into TikTok, Meta, these different platforms that at one small tweak to their algorithm, and then boom, your profits have evaporated until you figure out how to adjust it over the next 60 days, right? And we see that over and over again. But like if I can be, think of it this way. If I can be at a 5x ROAS, that means 20% of your revenue is going to ad spend, but I have a total overhead on sales commission spiffs overrides at even on the high end 25%, then that's 45% acquisition cost. Then you have an ad manager in there, so maybe call it 50%. Most group coaching programs, like you have a pretty low percentage of revenue that's going to fulfillment. So now you're at that 55% that I was talking about earlier. But that's on the high end of what you would spend on a sales team. And it's probably a much smaller number, especially if you have a really optimized funnel for direct to closer bookings and you're not having to pay a setter and setter managers and all that kind of stuff to manage that. But yeah, I mean, that the biggest thing that I think that I see create scalability for offers is having a really dialed in setter team that's going to pick up the phone and actually outbound dial.
Really, huh?
So both of those offers, other offers that I got to 2 million a month, I want to say, depending on the month, it was about 70% of revenue that came from a setter outbound dialing a lead and qualifying them, getting them onto a closer counter, and then transaction happened. About 70%.
And do you mean qualifying a setter or SDR dialing outbound leads from like paid ads or organic or both?
Paid ads. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting, because one of the companies that I'm helping scale, they're doing live events. It's a smaller ticket price, like I think it's like $800. And they had a wait list, and they had trouble calling. I think, well, speed to lead was a problem, first of all, which is the biggest problem. And the longer you wait, which we're talking like not even hours or days, we're talking weeks and possibly even months. It's an ice cold lead, so they're calling them back, and people don't remember because they've taken so long to get back to them, and they don't even remember what the event was. They don't even remember what the wait list was for. They don't remember what the upcoming, what the reason is. And so the sales team is having a hard time not only getting them on the call, keeping them on the call, and closing them on the call. So, I mean, does it make sense to even reactivate those leads that are, maybe 1-2 months, even 3 months, or just work with the ones that are coming in from, inbound paid ads that are fresh and not take so long to get back to them?
Yeah, I mean, we the way I would do it before, excuse me, is with close, and I used to be Close's biggest fan, and I still am. I like their
I love
CRM.
those. Yeah, me too.
Close is the best, right?
I do. Yeah.
People would be surprised how many big companies are actually using Close, and I know that there's been a big push that there's a lot of big names that use like a HubSpot Alaware combo. But the truth is, and this is a massive shout out, I guess, for Matt Ryder, Dialer.io is just destroying everybody right now when it comes to
Really?
like if you have outbound dialers at all in setters at all doing anything, you're a fool to not use Dialer.io. And I mean like 20% pickup rates on average on single dials across multiple
I saw
offers
that.
I'm like helping right
That's
now.
insane. That's insane.
And I can verify it's actually real.
Wow.
So like they're absolutely killing it there. And so like when you're able to maximize the amount of if I'm gonna have a setter work 8 hours in a day, I'd rather have them actually on the phone talking to people for 6 out of those 8 hours versus 2 or 3, which is what we're seeing with Close. And I wish I could take the magic of Dialer.io and get into Close, but and have the best of both worlds. But that's the reality there is like.
Oh, are you saying Dialer.io has 20% pickup rates versus Close CRM? Dialer from there is much lower?
Yes, much lower because they're using Twilio on their back end. So they're all like tier 3 phone numbers, and Matt Ryder could probably hop on this podcast and explain all the mechanics of why it all works better than I do. But I went down that same path. I mean, on one of the teams I managed, at one point we had over 100 outbound setters actively dialing, and we were pushing 20,000 dials a day. Yeah, so we were pushing 20,000 dials a day, and it's just like knowing what I know now, especially after like having conversations with like people internally at Newstar and Haya. I didn't really ever talk to Orion or TNS, but those are all the companies that basically manage spam tags and like what actually will cause something to turn into spam tags. But like Matt's gone down that rabbit hole in a crazy way and has just figured out how to have a system that like works compliantly with everything. It's hardwired into this whole podcast is turning into a giant pitch for Dialer.io, but I'm just like excited about what they're doing right now. But yeah, it's like,
are you their CSO?
I maybe I should be, but I don't know.
You should be. Yeah, Matt Ryder, if you're listening, this is your biggest fan, and he's not even working with you. So that's how you know you've got an evangelical advocate and a super fan when someone's basically shouting out to you on a podcast, talking about their offer and shouting out your offer.
Yeah, no, I do know him. I've made some warm intros to him, and he actually was just like yesterday. He texted me and was like, "Dude, I need to get you on my podcast." Like literally everybody that you send over is just like gives the highest praises about you.
Done deal. CSO, VP of Global Sales, Ben Gower. I'm calling it right now.
We'll
business partner. Boom.
There you go. I'm happy to be a cheerleader, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, it all starts somewhere. You be a water boy, cheerleader, whatever it takes, right?
Let's go.
Holy smokes. I have learned so much, and I am a student in this podcast, literally just listening to you, Ben, basically just all of your, rich dad, poor dad, 18-year-old dad, 8-month-old dad, high school with horrible acne, getting a girl pregnant at 18, dad passing 2 weeks later, mom being a stay-at-home mom and making that 3K in Philadelphia, door-to-door sales, dropping out of school, managing back-end ops and sales team, getting companies to 300K, $1 million, 1.27 million cash collected for 5 million contracted revenue. Like, definitely I have met not only my doppelganger, but another sales ninja, sales savage. And wow, we got to do a part 2. This is so amazing. I know we've run out of time.
Be happy to.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your mind, your gift, and stewarding it so well. And I know that your wife and kids in Atlanta and your cat and your church are going to benefit from the gift and the heart and the time that you give. What are the last words that you would like to share with companies who want to get not to 1 or 5 million, but want to get to even 6 figures?
To 6 figures a month, you mean?
Yeah, six figure months.
Yeah. simplicity scales. Show what you do, what the deliverables of your offer are as early in the funnel as possible, and be transparent about that. You can do some price anchoring so that they're not sticker shocked when you actually get on a call and talk about what the investment is to move forward. But really going up beyond those like 6-figure months to 7-figure months, be okay with incentivizing the right person to just be obsessed and like go all in on developing all of the systems and processes that your team needs to scale. If you do that, you're going to be golden.
Sorry, the last part was, what do you mean by incentivizing them to be? How do you incentivize them?
The comp plan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
I mean, when I was a CFO of one of the offers, like I had a comp plan where it was like 2% of top line and then 20% of net profit.
Wow.
And so because he wanted me more heavily focused on the bottom line of the company versus just pushing as much revenue as possible. So it's just like ultimately define exactly what you want to see, what's really important to you, and then create an incentive structure with somebody who actually has the chops to be able to make that happen, and then let them sprint, So yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so here you've heard it, guys. Ben, double way to optimize and automate and scale your business. And we have a free gift called the salesexec.io. And I'm going to put that up in the show notes here. And if you guys want to get a hold of Ben, you can get a hold of him at facebook.com/coach Ben Gower. And you can also connect with him on Instagram as well. And if you guys want to connect with his website and book a call with him, you can go to salesexec.io over here. And he can help you grow beyond to infinity and beyond. So thank you, Ben, so much for your time. And for those of you guys who are listening, there is a Godfather offer creation webinar that I'm going to be having next Friday. So feel free to comment offer if you want your invite to basically grow and monetize your offer and take it to the moon as well. And if you are a 6 or 7-figure entrepreneur and you want to come on the podcast, comment podcast as well. So Ben, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your amazing heart and for all your sales ninja tips, tricks, sales strategies. We went through a deep dive, and I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, learned so much.
Awesome, man. Pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, we'll talk to you, and we'll get you on a part 2 for sure. God bless.